Good morning, students of class 7. Today we will do a new chapter, that is the Delhi Sultanate. This is the chapter in your half yearly. Okay. So before starting the chapter, let me tell you something that in Delhi, so while discussing about Delhi Sultanate, the first thing we will talk about is Muhammad Ghori. So we have already read in the previous chapter that in the second battle of Tarain, Muhammad Ghori defeated Prithviraj Chauhan, okay, and Muhammad Ghori established the Delhi Sultanate. But as he died, so his general was Kutubuddin Aibak, okay, and Kutubuddin Aibak then established the main Delhi Sultanate and continued to rule, okay. So we will talk about today in details about Kutubuddin Aibak and his next generations, okay, and then various other dynasties. So let us start. So I told you the Muslim rule, it was established by Muhammad Ghori in 12th century and he was helped by the general Kutubuddin Aibak, okay. Now Muhammad Ghori, he died in 1206 CE and leaving no descendants. So Kutubuddin Aibak claimed the Indian territories, Punjab, Sindh, Indo-Gangetic plains and present-day Bihar and Bengal. Now rulers at that time was known as sultans. The 5 dynasties that ruled over northern India were the slave dynasty, the Khaljis, the Tughlaqs, the Sayyids and the Lodhis. Okay, you have to learn it in proper way, serial wise. Now the first thing we will talk about is the slave dynasty. The first dynasty was the slave dynasty. Now the Turkish rulers, they depended on slaves very much. Okay, and these slaves were very much trained, both military and they had intellectual spheres also, they were trained. Okay, so these slaves, as they became very powerful, they rose to power. Okay, they rose to become rulers of their land, both political and with military efficiency. So Kutubuddin Aibak was among this slave dynasty. Okay, these slaves were also called Mamluk. Okay, so another name was Mamluk Sultans. Okay, the slave dynasty, the rulers of the slave dynasties were also known as Mamluk Sultans. Okay, now we will go in details about Kutubuddin Aibak. Now I told you in second battle of Tarain, he was Ghori's general Kutubuddin Aibak, and Muhammad Ghori captured Kanauj, Bihar and Bengal. Okay, these regions they were conquered by Ghori with the help of Kutubuddin Aibak. Now after that Kutubuddin Aibak next came into position and Kutubuddin Aibak conquered Ajmer, Jhansi, Delhi and Meerut. He married the daughter of Yildiz, who was the governor of Iran. Okay, and another measure of him was he used marriages to strengthen his position. Okay, he made good relations with various areas. Okay, by making marriage. Then he made his sister married to Kabacha, who was the governor of Sindh. Okay, next the Kutubuddin's daughter was married to Iltutmish, and Iltutmish he succeeded the throne of the Delhi Sultanate after Kutubuddin Aibak. He was also an able ruler. Now the Aibak was the lover of art and literature. Hazar Nizami and Fakir Ahmad were a part of his court, and he was also known as Lakh Baksh, that means giver of lakhs. Okay, so he also very kind-hearted. And 2 mosques were made, that is Qatul Islam Mosque in Delhi and Dhai Din Ka Jhopra in Ajmer. He also started to work on the Qutub Minar, but he did not complete it, and he faced an accidental death, that is an accidental fall while playing polo in 1210 CE. Okay. Next comes Iltutmish. Okay, Iltutmish He assumed the title Samshuddin, that is the son of the religion. Many challenges, he was also very powerful and he faced many challenges, and his first work was to crush the revolt of the nobles, and he defeated Yaldos and occupied Lahore and Punjab. Then he attacked and defeated Kabacha, who was the governor of Sindh, okay, and subdued the Rajput chiefs of Ranthambore, Ajmer and Gwalior, made Bengal and Bihar under his control. So all these are the achievements of Iltutmish. Okay. Then he built a line of forts along the river Ravi to prevent the attack of the Mongols. So Mongols were also coming to attack, and so he made forts along the river Ravi and he gained ground. Okay. Next comes Razia Sultana. Razia Sultana, she was also very powerful lady, but she faced many challenges from the opposition of the group of 40. Okay. This group of 40 consisted of Turkish nobles and military leaders. As you know, at that time, nobody was going to accept women as a leader. So there are many refusals from the nobles to accept a woman. So ultimately Razia was bound to resign, and after she gave resignation, there was a political instability. Then his younger brother Nasiruddin was put to the throne, but actual power was in the hands of Ghiyasuddin Balban, and after Nasiruddin's death, Balban then declared himself as the Sultan of Delhi. Okay. So next, after Razia Sultana, the next important powerful ruler was Ghiyasuddin Balban. So we will read about Ghiyasuddin Balban. Now Ghiyasuddin Balban, he was a very strong person and he protected his dynasty from the attacks of the Mongols. He was also a diplomatic person. Okay, he built chains of fortresses to strengthen northwest frontier. So he made his northwest frontier very strong. Now in 1260 CE, he entertained an envoy from Hulagu, who was the grandson of Chengiz Khan. So I told you he was a diplomatic person. So he entertained this envoy named Hulagu, and he was the grandson of Chengiz Khan. But later on, the slave dynasty collapsed, and after this slave dynasty came the Khaljis, okay, the rise of the Khaljis. Now we will read about the Khalji dynasty. Now Balban's grandson was put to death by Firoz Shah, who was the Khalji tribe, and this Firoz Shah was Afghan origin. Now Jalaluddin Khalji. This Firoz Shah, another name of him was Jalaluddin. Okay, he ascended the throne. He was a very benevolent ruler, but his administration was criticized because it was weak. Okay, and there was attack again from the Mongols, but somehow it was repulsed by Jalaluddin. But unfortunately, Jalaluddin was treacherously killed by his ambitious nephew Alauddin Khalji. So Alauddin Khalji killed his uncle in a very treacherous manner, and then he came to the throne. And now we will read about Alauddin Khalji in details. Now Ibn Battuta, as you have read, he was an African traveler, came from Morocco. He told that Alauddin Khalji was best sultan. Okay, cruel. He was cruel, resolute in his ambition, and his ambition was like Alexander the Great. Okay, he wanted to capture the whole world, but he could not fulfill his wish. So we will read about his conquest. So his first expedition was in Gujarat, Malwa, Mewar he captured, and the forts of Ranthambore and Chittor. Okay, Malik Kafur was his slave as well as his general of Alauddin's army. Okay, very he was very much good and he helped Alauddin Khilji every time. Okay, very honest slave. Successful raids he made various raids. Successful raids he made into Deccan. He captured Devagiri, defeated the rulers of Warangal, Dwarasamudra and Mysore. Okay. Then he drained the wealth of Madurai and Rameshwaram. Now the first ruler of Delhi Sultanate to extend kingdom to south of the river Narmada. So he was the first ruler of the Delhi Sultanate to extend his kingdom to south of the river Narmada. So it was a huge extension. Next we are coming to the administrative reforms. Now in administrative reforms, he was an able commander. He was an excellent administrator, increased the size of the army. He confiscated, that is, he has taken all the rent-free land holdings given to priests, government officials. Okay. So the land that was previously that were given to the priests and the government officials, he took those lands. Okay. Extra taxes were to the peasants were forbidden, or the officials who just tortured the peasants, he forbidden the extra taxes that were given to the peasants. He forbidden those. Okay, and revenues paid directly in kind. So the revenues were paid in kind. There were two ways of paying revenue, either in kind or in cash. So he told the peasants to pay the revenue in kind. Acha, next, land revenue was raised. How much? To half the total produce. What was the total production? That half production will be put as land revenue. Then this is the way he increased his treasury. Okay, and he also made a check on the price of commodity. Why? Because his soldiers could live within their income. So there was a check in the price of the commodity, and that for the benefit of the soldiers. Then he also prevented conspiracies among the nobles. He banned all the banquets and assemblies. He enlarged the system of espionage, that is the spread spies across the empire. Okay, these are his included all these things, that conspiracy, in order to stop the conspiracies among the nobles, so he banned the banquets and the assemblies. Okay, and the spying system, he encouraged the spying system so that he could able to know anybody who was making any conspiracy against him. He also set up market in Delhi, and there was market for food grains, horses, cattle, imported goods were there, with weights and balances of merchants were checked. Even there were storing of grains. Okay, these storing of grains were there in case of natural disaster or any crisis, he would able to provide those during those need. Okay, emergency, he would provide. And Amir Khusro, he wrote the poem in Alauddin Khilji's court. He wrote it in Persian language. So after Alauddin's death, his minor son was put on the throne by Malik Kafur. Okay, and then he was also put to death by and the last Khalji ruler was Khusro Khan. He was killed by Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq. And after Alauddin Khalji, we are then coming to the Tughlaq dynasty. So I hope you have understood the chapter and read this. Then in the next class we will again do the Tughlaq dynasty. Okay, thank you.